Chapter 3. A Place of Rest. The weather had improved, but no one in the company felt like singing or talking throughout that day, nor the next, nor the day after that. They all realized now that danger was no longer something far away. They camped beneath the stars, where the ponies often ate better than their masters. Green grass was plentiful, but their food bags were running low, even with the supplies taken from the goblins. One morning, they forded a shallow part of the river, full of rocks and foaming water. The far bank was steep and slippery. When they climbed it, leading their ponies, the company beheld the great mountains stretched out before them. The nearest seemed not more than a day's march away. It looked dark and forbidding, though here and there sunlight struck the brown slopes, and beyond it sharp peaks covered in snow rose up. "Is that the great mountain?" Bilbo asked in an excited voice, staring at it. He had never seen anything so vast before. "Of course not," Balin replied. "That is only the beginning of the misty mountains. We must get through, over or across them somehow before we come to Wilderland. And even then, it is a long way yet to the lonely mountain in the east, where Smaug lies upon the treasure of the dwarves." "Oh, sir," said Bilbo, and at once he was seized by a desire stronger than any he remembered before, a longing for his familiar chair beside the fireside in his dear Hobbit hole where the kettle was singing on the hearth. Nor was this the last time he would feel it. Now Gandalf led the way. "Do not stray off the path or you will be in danger," said the wizard. "First, we need more provisions and a place to rest that is safe enough, and we must choose our road carefully, for without the right way through the misty mountains, you are certain to get lost. Then there is nothing for it but to turn back and begin again, if indeed you can get back at all." The company all asked where he intended to lead them, and he answered, "You have reached the edge of the wild, as some of you may know. Somewhere ahead lies the hidden valley of Rivendell. That is the last homely house where Elrond dwells. I have sent word to him by some friends, and he will be expecting us." It sounded wonderful and comforting, but they were not there yet. To find the last homely house on the western side of the mountains was no easy task. No tree, hill or valley broke the dreary landscape before them, only a long slope climbing steadily to the mountain's feet. It was a wide, desolate land of rock and grey stone, with here and there a patch of green grass that might mark the presence of water. Morning passed, afternoon came, and still no sign of habitation. The travelers grew uneasy, for they knew the house must be somewhere near the mountains. Suddenly, deep clefts opened at their feet. Looking down, they were surprised to see great trees growing far below, and streams boiling along the bottoms. Some rifts were narrow enough to leap across, but many had become deep chasms filled with the roar of falling water. Other cracks yawned black and bottomless, with no hope of crossing. Here and there were swamps, some deceptively green and pleasant, with tall flowers, but deadly to any laden pony that strayed into them. The stretch of ground to be crossed before they reached the mountain's feet was far greater than they had expected. Bilbo was amazed. The only path was marked by white stones, a few small, others half hidden under moss and weathered rock. Following it was slow work, even with Gandalf, who knew the way well, at their head. The wizard bent often to seek the marks, his beard wagging from side to side, while the dwarves trailed after. But as evening drew near, they still had not found their destination. Tea time was long past, and supper seemed likely to share the same fate. Moths flickered in the dim light, the moon had not yet risen, and Bilbo's pony stumbled among sharp rocks and roots. Suddenly, they came to the brink of a sheer slope plunging down. Gandalf's horse all but slipped over the edge. "At last," said the wizard. The others crowded round and looked down. Far below lay a valley. They heard the sound of rushing water over stone, smelled the fragrance of trees, and saw lights twinkling on the far side, shining upon the river. Bilbo never forgot the ride, and tumble down the zigzag path into the secret valley of Rivendell at evening. The lower they went, the warmer the air became. The scent of pine made the hobbit drowsy. More than once he nodded on his pony and nearly fell. But the traveler's spirits rose with every step downward. Oak and fir gave way to birch and beech, and it was pleasant walking in the late evening. The grass ended as they came to a wide glade near the riverbank. Elvish sort of place, thought Bilbo, glancing at the stars. Blue-white points sparkled above, then singing burst forth, light laughter in the trees. Elvish song teasing the travelers, full of rhyme and nonsense about their journey, their ponies, and their beards. The laughter and singing were, of course, from the elves. Soon Bilbo glimpsed their shapes in the dusk. He liked elves, though he rarely met them, but they also made him a little uneasy. The dwarves, on the other hand, did not like elves at all. Even the most respectable, like Thorin and his company, thought them foolish. A foolish thought in itself, or at the very least unfriendly. The elves teased and mocked the dwarves, especially their long beards. "Ha, look," cried a voice. "The hobbit Bilbo on his poor little pony, how very fine." "Never seen the like," laughed another. Then they burst into another song, as mocking as the first. When it ended, a tall young elf came forward. "Welcome to the valley," he said. "So it seems," Thorin answered rather gruffly, but Gandalf had dismounted and was talking cheerfully among them. "You are somewhat off the track," said one elf. "If you are seeking the road across the river to the house beyond, we will show you the way. But from here to the bridge and across you must go on foot. Will you stay to sing a few songs with us, or do you wish to go straight on? Supper is nearly ready. I can smell the firewood." Bilbo, very tired, wished to stop. To hear elves singing under the stars of June was not something to miss, especially for one who enjoyed such things. He longed to speak with them too, for they knew his name and who he was, though he had never met them. He thought their opinion of the journey might be interesting. Elves were wiser and better informed than anyone. Their tidings spread swifter than the wind. But the dwarves wanted only supper, and as soon as possible, without delay. So the company went on, leading their ponies. The elves guided them to the riverbank. It rushed and foamed like every mountain stream in summer night, fed by the day's melting snows. There was but one bridge, a narrow stone span without railings, so tight that a pony had to be led across with care, one at a time. The elves carried lanterns, lighting the way, and sang merrily as the company passed. "Keep your beard out of the foam, old father," they shouted to Thorin, who was nearly crawling on hands and knees. "It's long enough without a washing." "And don't let Bilbo eat all the cakes," they cried. "He'll grow too, fat to slip through a keyhole." "Hush, hush now, good people," said Gandalf, last to cross. "The valley has ears and some elves have tongues too long. Good night." And so they came to the last homely house, its doors standing open. It is a strange thing that if everything goes well, with days pleasant and untroubled, the tale is not worth telling, nor interesting to the listener. But when things go amiss, when you are frightened or uncomfortable, such times make the most engaging stories afterwards. The company stayed there for no short while, at least a fortnight, and would gladly have remained longer. Bilbo, in particular, would have been content to stay on and on, even had he been able to return to his hobbit hole at once without effort. Yet there is little to record of their rest at the last homely house. Its master was a friend of the elves, descended from the heroes of old, from the days before the histories were written, when the goblins of the mountains warred with the elves and the first men of the north. In those days there were folk who mingled the blood of elves and of the great heroes of men. Elrond was their chief. His face was noble and fair as an elven king's, strong as a warrior's, wise as a wizard's, venerable as a dwarf lord's, and kind as summer. Elrond's house was the very embodiment of perfection. Whether you loved food or sleep, work or storytelling, singing or listening, or a little of each, you would find your place there. No evil dwelt in that wondrous valley. I wish I had the time to tell you some of the tales and songs our travelers heard in that house. In those days, the whole company, even the ponies, recovered their strength and spirits. Their clothes were mended, their scratches healed, their mood and hope restored. Their bags were filled with light, yet nourishing provisions for the crossing of the mountains. They also received wise counsel for their plans ahead. Summer was now at its height, and on a fine morning the company set out once more. Elrond was a master of all ancient runes. That day he examined the swords taken from the trolls. These were not made by trollsmiths. They are ancient blades, very old, from the high elves of the west, of the same kin as ourselves. They were forged in Gondolin for the war against the goblins. These blades must have found their way into a dragon's hoard or become plunder for the goblins, for it was dragons and goblins that destroyed Gondolin centuries ago. Now, Thorin, your sword bears the rune name Orcrist, Goblin Cleaver, a famous blade. And Gandalf's sword is called Glamdring, Foe Hammer, once borne by the King of Gondolin himself. Treasure them well. How came these swords into the hands of the trolls? Thorin asked. That I cannot say for certain, Elrond replied. Most likely the trolls stole them from thieves, or perhaps they found them among hoards hidden in the roots of the northern mountains. I have heard tales of forgotten treasures in the caves of Moria, left since the wars of dwarves and goblins long ago. Thorin pondered his words. I will guard this blade, he said. May it once more hew down goblins as in days of old. You are not unlikely to have your wish, said Elrond, perhaps sooner than you think, when you reach your mountain. Now let me see your map. He spread it out, studying it closely, shaking his head now and then. Elrond did not much care for the dwarves' ways, least of all their greed for gold. But he hated dragons with all his heart, for their cruelty and cunning. And he still grieved for the ruins of Dale, where the merry bells had once rung, now lying in blackened heaps beside the running river. The moon rose, a silver sickle in the sky. Elrond lifted the map to the light. Why, what is this? He exclaimed. Beside the ordinary runes, 5 feet high the door and 3 may walk abreast, I see also moon letters. Moon letters, the Hobbit cried eagerly. He loved maps, as I have told you before, and he was fond of all ancient writings and puzzles, though his own hand was crooked and untidy. Moon letters are rune letters you cannot see, Elrond explained. They can only be read by the light of the moon shining behind them, and often only when the moon is of the same shape and season as at the time of their writing. Dwarves invented them, and they wrote them with silver pens, as your friends here can tell you. These were written on a midsummer's eve long ago, when the moon was a thin crescent like tonight. What do they say? Asked Gandalf and Thorin, together, a little annoyed that Elrond had discovered them before they did, though in truth there had been no chance of reading them earlier, and who knew if ever again. Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, Elrond read, and the last light of Durin's day will shine upon the keyhole. Durin? Durin, Thorin exclaimed. He was the father of fathers of the eldest house of the dwarves, the Longbeards. He is my ancestor, and I am his heir. And when is Durin's day? Asked Elrond. The first day of the dwarves' new year, Thorin answered, the last moon of autumn before winter sets in. We call it Durin's day when the sun and moon are seen together in the sky. But in these times I wonder who can still reckon it rightly. That matter can wait, Gandalf interrupted. Is there anything else on the map? By tonight's moon, that is all I can read, Elrond said, handing the map back to Thorin. Then they all went down to the riverbank to watch the elves dancing and singing in the midsummer moonlight. The next morning was bright and fair, the air clean and fresh, the sky blue and cloudless, the sunbeams dancing on the water. The company set out once more, with the elves' songs of farewell echoing in their ears. They went swiftly, their hearts ready for new adventures, and with a clear road before them, to cross the misty mountains and reach the lands beyond.